Hey everyone, this is Michael again, and welcome to the AEW Dynamite review. Dynamite tonight was from the FirstOntario Centre in Hamilton, Ontario, and the show just ended. And Dynamite tonight, after coming off of Forbidden Door, I thought the show tonight was just very mid, in my opinion. Wasn't a great show tonight. It felt like I was watching Monday Night Raw, but a watchable Raw. Even though this show was much better than Monday Night Raw on Monday. But I did watch Forbidden Door, and I thought it was a good show. Of course, you had Jungle Boy turn heel on Hook. You had also MJF ended up retaining the World Championship. And I'm not surprised by that, by how Tanahashi showcased himself the day before Forbidden Door on Collision, and how he moved like not too well, in my opinion. Of course, you had Bryan Danielson end up winning his match against Okada, to which Bryan is now out with an injury that he suffered in the match. And you also have Will Ospreay. He ended up defeating Kenny Omega to win the IWGP United States Heavyweight Championship. And you had CM Punk. He defeated Satoshi Kojima. But it was a good show, Forbidden Door. It really was. But tonight on Dynamite, we had Jon Moxley. He ended up taking on Tomohiro Ishii. We had Keith Lee, Orange Cassidy, and El Hijo del Vikingo versus Matt Menard, Angelo Parker, and Danny Garcia. We had the Elite, Hangman Page, and the Young Bucks ended up taking on the Dark Order, Evil Uno and Alex Reynolds and John Silver. We also saw Ruby Soho versus Alexia Nicole, to which this match wasn't supposed to take place. It was originally supposed to be Ruby Soho versus Dr. Britt Baker, DMD. But Tony Khan ended up announcing on Twitter that Britt Baker got sick. And it was the same why Adam Cole missed Forbidden Door. So Britt Baker's match against Ruby Soho will be moved to next week. This was part of the Women's Owen Hart Foundation tournament. So we'll be getting that match next week on Dynamite. And the main event, we had a Tornado tag team match where Sting and Darby Allin took on the Painmaker, Chris Jericho. I love the Painmaker gimmick of Jericho. And Jericho teamed up with Sammy Guevara. But overall, Dynamite tonight was just a very mid show, but can understand why. I mean, coming off Forbidden Door, which was a very good show, very hot show, and going into Dynamite, you knew that, everything on the show was just going to be, just mid to okay, in my opinion. But overall, let's jump right into the review. Dynamite opened up tonight with Jon Moxley versus Tomohiro Ishii. And this was a good match here. Jon Moxley ended up coming out with Wheeler Yuta and Claudio Castagnoli. And you also had Tomohiro Ishii end up coming out next. So the match got underway, and we had a chop fest between Ishii and Moxley. So it led to both guys shoving into each other for a shoulder tackle. Moxley ended up evading the enziguri from Ishii. And so we had Moxley end up transitioning into some forearms and some strikes. So we had Ishii end up sending Moxley into the ropes. He ended up hitting a shoulder tackle that sent Moxley down to the mat. So Moxley was able to get back to his feet, and he ended up biting Ishii's head. So Ishii came back and bited Moxley's head. So we had Moxley end up taking Ishii down to the mat. Moxley ended up grabbing Ishii's hands, and he was delivering some stomps to Ishii. Moxley ended up going for a cover, and Ishii ended up kicking out, and Moxley ended up sending Ishii to the outside. So we had Wheeler Yuta and Claudio Castagnoli. They stood over Ishii. So we had Moxley end up diving through the ropes to Ishii, and he ended up going into the crowd to take a breather for a bit. Moxley ended up heading back to the ring, and the ref was starting the count, and Eddie Kingston ended up coming out. Eddie Kingston got a big pop from the crowd. He grabbed a chair, and he was yelling at Claudio Castagnoli and Wheeler Yuta to get away. Moxley ended up coming out of the ring to confront Eddie Kingston as Dynamite went to commercial. So we got the picture-in-picture, with the commercial and what was happening during the commercial on Dynamite, of course. So during the picture-in-picture, Ishii ended up laying out Moxley with a forearm. And as Dynamite came back, Moxley slowly made it back to his feet. He was set up on a turnbuckle by Ishii. So Ishii ended up hitting a superplex to Moxley. So Ishii ended up going for the cover. Moxley ended up kicking out. Ishii hit the ropes, and he was trading blows with Moxley. And so both Moxley and Ishii ended up taking a breather. Moxley ended up hitting a rolling elbow strike, which sent Ishii down. Moxley ended up setting up Ishii for a pile driver, and Moxley ended up going for the cover. Ishii kicked out. Moxley ended up going after Ishii with some elbow strikes. He ended up blocking in a bulldog choke. Ishii started to fight back, and he got back to his feet. Moxley still had the bulldog choke on Ishii. Ishii ended up nailing a back suplex to break the bulldog choke. Moxley ended up responding with a German suplex and a lariat, to which he ended up going for the cover, to which Ishii kicked out. So we had, near fall after near fall between Moxley and Ishii, and it led to both guys hitting a lariat, which sent both guys down to the canvas. So both guys got back up to their knees. Both Moxley and Ishii were trading headbutts, and they were trading slaps to the face. And Moxley ended up evading a clothesline, and he hit a paradigm shift, which dropped Ishii. Moxley ended up going for the cover, and Ishii ended up kicking out. Of course, Moxley was busted open in the match. Of course, does Moxley have to bleed in every single match that he has? I'm like, every time Moxley has a match, I'm like, all right, how many minutes until we see Moxley start to bleed? So Moxley got back up to his feet. He was looking to hit the Death Rider on Ishii, but Ishii came back and delivered a DDT and a lariat to Moxley. Ishii ended up going for the cover, to which Moxley kicked out. So we had Ishii end up bouncing back from a slam that was delivered by Moxley. Ishii ended up bringing Moxley up for a brainbuster, but it got countered into the Death Rider by Moxley. So Moxley was slow to make the cover on Ishii. So that ended up costing Moxley a 2 count because Ishii ended up kicking out. Moxley ended up going to the ropes to deliver a stomp to Ishii, and he ended up hitting a stomp to Ishii, and then he ended up hitting the Death Rider on Ishii. So Moxley ended up going for the cover, and there you go. Moxley ended up winning the match. Post-match, Wheeler Yuta and Eddie Kingston were mouthing off at each other. Moxley ended up making his way to the back to celebrate. Moxley stared down at Eddie Kingston as he made his way up the ramp. Eddie Kingston mockingly congratulated Moxley, and pretty much that was basically that. But overall, I thought this was a good match here, and I like the physicality between Moxley and Ishii here. So, overall, it was a good match. So, we went backstage. Renee Paquette was gearing up to speak with Adam Cole, and a vehicle came speeding into the garage. Like we saw Adam Cole end up getting out of a van, and then here comes this van speeding in to the parking lot. And MJF stepped out of it. MJF ended up mocking Adam Cole for being too sick to be at Forbidden Door. So Adam Cole was like to MJF, I was really sick. I was officially sick. So MJF ended up offering to get to know Adam Cole better. And he's like, all right, how about this weekend? We get to know each other better. Adam Cole took MJF up on his offer, and he ended up saying that he's going to go say hi to a few people. So MJF ended up showing a new shirt to Adam Cole. And on the shirt, it said, better than you, baby. So Adam Cole scoffed at that, and he ended up walking off. And pretty much that was basically that. But yeah, MJF, showing Adam Cole a new shirt where it says better than you, baby. That'll be up on AEW Shop, soon. And then as Dynamite came back from the commercial, Renee Paquette, she was talking to her husband, Jon Moxley, and Wheeler Yuta and Claudio Castagnoli. Eddie Kingston ended up rushing in, and Kingston ended up yelling at Moxley about hanging out with that scumbag, Claudio Castagnoli. So Moxley ended up yelling at Eddie Kingston. He was like, who cares about some Shakira bullshit? So Moxley and the Blackpool Combat Club, Yuta and Claudio Castagnoli walked off, and Eddie Kingston was just laughing, and Renee was like, all right, I am done. So that was that. And then we had a trios match. Orange Cassidy, who retained the International Championship at Forbidden Door. And it was him, El Hijo del Vikingo, and Keith Lee versus Angelo Parker, Matt Menard, and Danny Garcia. And this was a meh match, in my opinion. Did not care for it. You had Keith Lee coming out, and he didn't look like a grandpa, which was good because, he dyed his hair. I'm like, oh, thank God. Thank God we don't have to see Keith Lee looking like a 70-year-old. When he had the white hair, all like that, it made him look old. So we got young Keith Lee again. But the match started off with Vikingo and Danny Garcia. So we had Vikingo end up taking down Danny Garcia. So we had Danny Garcia end up tagging in Angelo Parker. Vikingo tagged in Orange Cassidy. So Orange Cassidy stole the comb from Angelo Parker, and he pocketed the comb. Matt Menard came in, and we had Danny Garcia end up taking back in. So Orange Cassidy started to comb his hair, but he got stopped by Danny Garcia. Danny Garcia ended up sending Orange Cassidy to the ropes. Cassidy countered a hip toss, and he tagged in Vikingo. So Vikingo delivered some offense on Danny Garcia, and he ended up going for the cover. Danny Garcia ended up kicking out. So we had Danny Garcia end up taking control of the match with a little help from Matt Menard and Angelo Parker. So Danny Garcia then tagged in, Matt Menard, and we had, just back and forth between them. So Angelo Parker ended up, scoring a near fall off a body slam, and he ended up taking in Danny Garcia, and Danny Garcia ended up slamming Vikingo, and we had Matt Menard end up taking himself in as Dynamite went to commercial. Then when Dynamite came back from the commercial, Matt Menard ended up tagging in, and he kept the pressure on Vikingo. And he was looking to go for a powerbomb. Vikingo ended up struggling to make the tag, and Matt Menard ended up delivering a powerbomb to Vikingo. And we had Menard end up taking in Angelo Parker. Angelo Parker ended up going for the cover on Vikingo, and Vikingo ended up kicking out. So Menard and Parker ended up sending Orange Cassidy off the apron, and they ended up turning their attention to Keith Lee. So Vikingo ended up getting the tag to Keith Lee. Keith Lee leapt over the rope onto Matt Menard. So we had Menard, Parker, and also Danny Garcia. They ended up going after Keith Lee. So we had Danny Garcia at this point. He was dancing on Keith Lee's back, and he ended up getting hoisted onto his shoulders. And then Danny Garcia ended up managing to get out of that by Keith Lee. So Danny Garcia ended up getting sent to the corner. Keith Lee delivered a chop to Danny Garcia, and Vikingo ended up tagging in. Danny Garcia was down as Vikingo hit the ropes. He ended up hitting the dive, and we had Keith Lee end up doing a powerbomb on Vikingo, using him as a battering ram on Matt Menard and Angelo Parker. Vikingo leapt onto the turnbuckle to make a tag to Orange Cassidy. Orange Cassidy ended up coming in. He ended up going after Danny Garcia with the orange punch, but we had Danny Garcia end up hitting a Dragon Tamer to Orange Cassidy. At the end of the match, Matt Menard and Keith Lee were in the ring. Menard tried to hit some offense on Keith Lee, but Keith Lee ended up coming back, taking down Menard. So Keith Lee got Matt Menard on his shoulders for Supernova, and he ended up going for the cover. And there you go, Orange Cassidy, El Hijo del Vikingo, and Keith Lee ended up winning the match. Overall, just was a very meh match in my opinion. And then we went backstage, and we saw the Young Bucks and Hangman and Page. So the Bucks and Page end up issuing an open challenge, and that open challenge was answered by the Dark Order, John Silver, Alex Reynolds, and Evil Uno. So Page was hesitant to face, them because, of course, Page is friends with the Dark Order. So the Dark Order ended up calling out Page because Page ended up abandoning them. And they end up saying that as of tonight, they are no longer friends with Paige. So that was that. And then we went backstage, and we saw Renee Paquette. Renee Paquette was talking with Chris Jericho and Sammy Guevara. Jericho ended up addressing the history that he and Sting have, and how appropriate it is that they are going to be in the ring on TBS with Tony Schiavone commenting on the match. Jericho ended up saying that tonight, Sting is, in fact, facing the Painmaker. Now, he promises to put Sting's face in the dirt. So pretty much that was that. That was what Jericho had to say. Glad that we got the Painmaker here for the match, which was the main event. Painmaker Jericho. And then we had the Dark Order, Evil Uno, John Silver, and Alex Reynolds versus the Elite, Hangman Page, and the Young Bucks. And this was a decent match here. The Dark Order, Evil Uno, John Silver, and Alex Reynolds were accompanied by -1. So the match started off with Hangman Page and Alex Reynolds. Both guys were mouthing off at each other. Nick Jackson ended up stepping in to face off with Alex Reynolds. So the two were trading holds. Reynolds ended up taunting Page. Nick Jackson turned things around, and Nick Jackson was able to fight out of the offense that was delivered by Alex Reynolds. So Nick Jackson ended up pinning the ropes. He ended up overwhelming Alex Reynolds with an arm drag. John Silver then tagged in. Silver then pointed at Page. He ended up wanting Page to come in to pay for his perceived crimes. So Nick ended up tagging in Page. So Page and also John Silver, they were having an argument. Both guys ended up locking up. Page ended up dropping Silver, and Silver ended up getting back into it. Page ended up getting another headlock on Silver, but he couldn't take Silver down with a shoulder tackle. So both Page and Silver locked up again. Silver ended up nailing Page with a back elbow. Page ended up taking in Matt Jackson, and John Silver ended up taking in Evil Uno. So Matt and Evil Uno ended up going at it. Evil Uno delivered a shoulder tackle on Matt. He ended up knocking Page off the apron. So we had Evil Uno end up taking in Alex Reynolds. So Nick Jackson ended up running in. The Bucks end up hitting a combo on Alex Reynolds. So Evil Uno came in, and Evil Uno ended up laying out the Bucks. So Page was back on the apron, and he was arguing with Evil Uno. The Bucks then delivered a super kick to Evil Uno, and the Bucks went after Alex Reynolds. After Reynolds ended up tagging in, the Bucks ended up hitting a double dive to Reynolds, and they brought him back into the ring, and then they tagged in Page. So Page refused to get involved. He tagged Matt Jackson back in, and then Dynamite went to commercial. Then when Dynamite came back from the commercial, Matt Jackson ended up setting up Alex Reynolds for a powerbomb toward the corner. Reynolds ended up hitting a hurricanrana that sent Matt Jackson right into a kick to the face by Nick. So we had Alex Reynolds end up taking in Evil Uno. Evil Uno ended up going after Matt Jackson. Nick Jackson ran in. He ended up taking a cutter by Evil Uno. So we had Evil Uno end up hitting a pile driver on Nick Jackson, and he ended up going for the cover, to which Nick Jackson ended up kicking out. Page then got into the ring, and he was arguing with Evil Uno. Evil Uno ended up slapping Page in the face, and he ended up telling Page to face him like a man. Page rushed to the apron to make a tag, and he ended up going after Evil Uno, and they were exchanging strikes with each other. Page ended up getting Evil Uno up, and John Silver ended up delivering a drop kick to Page. and he ended up driving Evil Uno right into Paige. So the Bucks were taken out on the outside by both John Silver and Alex Reynolds. So at the end of the match, we had Paige end up hitting a buckshot lariat on John Silver, and he ended up going for the cover. And there you go. The Elite, Hangman Page, and the Young Bucks ended up winning the match. Post-match, the Blackpool Combat Club came into the ring to beat down on the Bucks and Page. And the Dark Order end up leaving the ring. Eddie Kingston ended up coming rushing down the ramp to intervene. So we had the Blackpool Combat Club and Takeshita end up coming out. Don Callis was watching on. Moxley then grabbed the mic, and he ended up saying that this has gone on for some time, and that it needs to come to an end. So Moxley ended up issuing a challenge for Blood and Guts, which is going to be on July 19th. It's going to be at the TD Garden in Boston. So there you go. There's your Blood and Guts match. The Elite versus the Blackpool Combat Club. That's going to be awesome there. And Blood and Guts, very good. But can't wait for it. Can't wait for Blood and Guts. And then we saw Adam Cole. This was after Dynamite came back from the commercial. Adam Cole met up with Roderick Strong. MJF ended up interrupting. And MJF ended up pushing Adam Cole along to get out of here so that they can both have a bit of fun. So Adam Cole, he was hesitant by MJF's attitude, but he ended up heading out to go with MJF. And then Roderick Strong was very confused on what was going on. So pretty much that was basically that. And then we had Jungle Boy, Jack Perry. He ended up making his way down to the ring. Of course, Tarzan Boy was playing. The crowd was singing along to it. But Jack Perry ended up saying, "Cut it off. Cut off the music." And he ended up saying that that song has been ruined to the point we are never going to hear it again. So Jack Perry's going to be getting new music. No Tarzan Boy anymore. But it was fun while it lasted. So the crowd ended up booing at that. Jack Perry ended up telling them to boo him all he wants. He ended up running the crowd down, saying that he's still cashing the fastest checks and enjoying the company of the hottest woman in this place. Of course, Anna Jay, to which, of course, Jack Perry and Anna Jay are dating. So Perry ended up talking about being robbed of 2 title opportunities. He ended up saying he is tired of seeing Hook dangle the FTW Championship in his face, despite, the FTW Championship not being recognized by AEW. So he ended up calling Hook a fraud. So Perry ended up saying that Jungle Hook was special because of him, and that Hook was lucky to ever stand next to him in the ring. So the crowd continued to boo at Perry. Perry ended up yelling at the crowd to shut up. He ended up saying that he knows what the FTW Championship means to him and his family. He ended up saying that is why he is going to take the FTW Championship away from Hook. So Perry ended up starting to promise what he's going to do to Hook. But Hook ended up rushing down the ramp. Hook ended up chasing after Perry. Perry ended up escaping the ring and ran through the crowd. And pretty much, that was that. You saw Perry, just rushing to the back. So then it cut to the parking lot. Perry ended up narrowly making it to his car, and the car ended up speeding away before Hook could catch up to Perry. So pretty much that was that. But I thought this was a very fun segment, Jungle Boy, Jack Perry coming out there, saying why he attacked Hook at Forbidden Door. And I really liked Jungle Boy, Jack Perry, as a heel here. Already liking his heel character. It's a different, Jungle Boy here. But I think this feud will be, pretty good here, with Perry and Hook. Obviously, I knew that it was going to be, Perry, facing Hook for the FTW Championship. I mean, when was the last time that the FTW Championship was defended? But really liking this Jungle Boy here. So then Sammy Guevara came out to the stage. He had some signs. And during the picture-in-picture, he delivered his message to Sting and Darby Allin as he ended up walking down the ramp. So he handed signs to people in the front row on his way down. And of course, it read Fight Forever. Of course, promoting the AEW game, which, I want to get, but I'm just going to wait until the price drops for it. I mean, the graphics to the game, I'm like, it looks very meh, in my opinion. I'm like, they kept delaying the game just for the graphics to look like that. I mean, the graphics look like an arcade game. So, but I'll still get the game, but just waiting for it to drop in price. So then we had Ruby Soho versus Alexia and Nicole. And this was just a squash match. This was originally, like I said, supposed to be Ruby Soho versus Britt Baker in the Women's Own Heart Foundation tournament. But unfortunately, Britt Baker ended up getting sick. So that match is going to take place next week on Dynamite. But Ruby Soho won the match. She ended up applying the lockjaw on Alexia, Britt Baker's, finishing move. So Ruby Soho ended up winning the match. Post-match, Ruby Soho ended up grabbing the spray paint from Saraya, and she ended up spraying the L on Alexia. So Ruby Soho took the mic. She ended up addressing that Britt Baker is not here. She ended up talking about the Women's Owen Hart tournament happening next week. And she ended up running down both Britt Baker and Adam Cole. Ruby Soho then addressed the comment that Britt Baker made before the match at Grand Slam last year at the Ash Stadium, of course, which I was at live. And she ended up saying that she likes who she is now. So Soho ended up running the fans down. She ended up saying Britt Baker barely beat her last year. And that the Outcasts took away everything she cared about. She ended up saying next week she's taking away Britt Baker's chance to be a two-time winner of the Owen Hart Cup. So pretty much that was basically that. And then you had QT Marshall, Harley Cameron, and Johnny TV backstage. So QT and Johnny TV end up issuing a challenge for a tag match on Rampage this Friday, which was made official. So we got QT Marshall and Johnny TV versus Matt Hardy and Brother Zay, Isaiah Cassidy. Going to be hearing Brother Zay, Isaiah Cassidy go, yeah. Watch. There's going to be one point in that match where he's going to be moaning. He's going to be going, Isaiah Cassidy, Brother Zay. And then we're going to be seeing Taya Valkyrie versus Hikaru Shida. That will be a pretty solid women's match there. And Shawn Spears is going to take on the Blade. So that's what's happening Friday on Rampage. So, should be, a okay, Rampage. And then on Collision, we're going to be seeing Chris Statlander, TBS champion, versus Lady Frost, TBS championship on the line in an open challenge. And we're going to be seeing Roderick Strong versus Samoa Joe, quarterfinal in the Owen Hart Foundation tournament. And also Dustin Rhodes versus Powerhouse Hobbs in the quarterfinal in the Owen Hart Foundation tournament. So we're going to be seeing that on Collision on Saturday. And of course, another match in the quarterfinal where it's going to be Juice Robinson versus Ricky Starks. So that should be a good match there. And of course, MJF is going to be making his Collision debut. So Collision's looking like a pretty good show on Saturday. So, I mean, it's going to be taped. It's not going to be live. But shape it up to be a good show, Collision, for Saturday. Main event, the Tornado Tag Team match. Sting and Darby Allin versus the Painmaker, Chris Jericho, and Sammy Guevara. And this was a good main event. Really liked this match here. Yeah, Sting and Darby Allin end up coming out first. And then out came Sammy Guevara. And then Jericho as the Painmaker. Of course, he had a different entrance. And it led into Judas being played and the crowd singing along to Judas. So Darby ended up sending Guevara out of the ring with a drop kick. And Sting and Jericho were in the ring to start off the match. Jericho smacked Sting with his bat. And Sting responded by grabbing his bat. And he smacked Jericho right back with his bat. Darby ended up rushing in. And so Darby and Sting end up hitting a set of Stinger splashes. Guevara ended up rushing in to even things up. So Guevara and Jericho end up being up on Sting. He ended up sending Sting to the outside. So Jericho ended up sending Sting into the barricade. Guevara then grabbed the ladder. He slid the ladder into the ring. Jericho ended up going after Darby. So Jericho ended up hitting Darby with a chair to his back. So Guevara ended up sending Darby into the ring steps. So we had Jericho and Guevara. They ended up sending Darby into the ring steps. And it sent Darby flipping over the ring steps and into the barricade, into the crowd. So then Dynamite went to commercial. Then as Dynamite came back from the commercial, Guevara was in control of the match. He ended up hitting a cutter on Darby over the barricade. He ended up sending him into the ring. So Guevara turned his attention to Sting, and he was fighting Jericho away. Darby ended up hitting a coffin drop on Guevara from the top turnbuckle. Sting then ended up hitting a Stinger splash on Jericho, and Darby ended up grabbing a table from under the ring. So we had a pair of tables set up at ringside. Darby ended up sliding into the ring to set up the ladder. Sting ended up getting Guevara up on the tables. Darby climbed the ladder. But Sting ended up setting up on the other side. He ended up telling Darby, "Oh, I got this." So Darby was holding the ladder. Sting was at the top of the ladder. He climbed to the top of the ladder. Sting leapt off the ladder, and he ended up crushing Guevara through a table. It looked like he was going to crush Guevara through two tables, but only one. So the second table didn't break, so that was a botch right there. So Darby ended up going after Jericho on the other side of the ring. He ended up grabbing a skateboard, and he ended up delivering a foot stomp to Jericho, to which Darby ended up going for the cover, and Jericho kicked out. Jericho got back up to his feet. He He ended up sending Darby into the ladder. Then Jericho grabbed the ladder. He slammed it right onto Darby. Jericho ended up sending the ladder up in the corner. Jericho picked up Darby. He ended up hitting a chop to Darby. And he was looking to send Darby into the ladder. But Jericho ended up taking a ladder to the face. So Darby ended up going to the ropes. Jericho ended up grabbing the skateboard. And he ended up nailing Darby in the back with the skateboard. Jericho then ended up following it up with the Judas effect, which sent Darby out of the ring. Sting ended up grabbing Jericho for the Scorpion Death Drop, but Jericho reversed that into the walls, so he locked it on Sting. Sting ended up crawling toward the corner, but of course he couldn't grab the rope because there's no disqualification. So Sting ended up grabbing a baseball bat. And Sting ended up nailing the baseball bat in Jericho's face to break up the walls of Jericho. So Jericho's face was busted open. Jericho ended up heading to the corner, and he was met with a Stinger Splash from Sting. But then Jericho ended up nailing Sting with the code breaker. Jericho ended up going for the cover, to which Sting kicked out. So we had Sting ended up hitting the Scorpion Death Drop on Jericho. So Sting ended up going for the cover, and Jericho kicked out. Jericho got back up to his feet, but Sting ended up dropping Jericho, and then Sting locked in the Scorpion Deathlock, and Jericho ended up tapping out. So there you go. Sting and Darby Allin ended up winning the match. But overall, it was a good main event. Really enjoyed it. It did go 2-minute overrun, but still, it was an enjoyable match. But overall, Dynamite was just a mid-show, in my opinion. Mid-show at best. But anyways, that's it for my review of tonight's Dynamite. Thank you all for watching. Hope you all enjoyed this review. Definitely give the video a thumbs up, comment, subscribe, and I will see you all back here on Friday. There's going to be a Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny movie review coming up. I'm going to go see it on Friday, so there will be a review up of that. And then, of course, SmackDown and the AEW Rampage review. So be on the lookout for those on Friday. So until then, see you all on Friday.